Welcome to Unscripted with Russo. I'm your host, Ashley Russo, president and executive producer of The Peak TV. For our podcast, we decided to explore the people behind the narratives. I'll introduce decision makers and influencers who are winners in their field and find out the intimate story behind their rise to success. All right, everybody, welcome. I'm being joined by Alex Michaels. He is the president and CEO of Discover Lehigh Valley. So, Alex, thanks for coming.
Well, thank you.
Good to have you.
Thank you.
For people who don't know, what is Discover Lehigh Valley?
Discover Lehigh Valley is the destination marketing organization for the region. We actually are, we're the marketing agency for Lehigh and Northampton County.
So if people are looking to come here or visit, or they've got family coming in from out of town, you tell them all the great things there are to do here.
Yeah, the main goal is to really drive tourism. And we're funded actually through bed tax dollars that, for the hotels, but in reality, our main goal is to drive tourism into the area. We want to believe that we're the ones that kind of give them that initial thought process of when they're making their decisions, where do we go, things to do. So we do everything we possibly can through our website and through other channels as well. So.
Well, I think we've kind of found each other and met because we try to do something very similar on the Peak TV, and so it's been fun to sort of compare notes on how we're promoting the area and what kind of ideas. And I love telling people outside of the area. I'm only from New Jersey, but I'm so proud of all the things that happen here.
Yeah, me as well.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit, how were you attracted to this job? Like, how did you figure, are you from this area? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, definitely. I actually grew up in New Jersey. I was born and raised in New Jersey. My family, actually going even further back, my parents both were born in Cuba, were raised in Cuba, came to the United States in the early 60s after Castro. Ended up in New York City, and something gravitated to New Jersey. Ended up working for a company called Western Electric at the time. So we were, when I was growing up, I was in a town called Union, New Jersey. Was there till about 9th grade, and they came home one day and said to me, hey, we're going to be moving.
Which is what every freshman in high school wants to hear.
Every freshman in high school wants to know. And I said to them, I said, great, where are we going? They're like, Allentown, Pennsylvania. And I was like, okay. And then
where's that?
Exactly. But then and then they said, or we're going to go to Orlando, Florida. So immediately I'm like, all right, I'm in. Orlando, Florida, sunshine, Disney, all that kind of stuff. I'm in. Let's do it. When we're moving. And then a few weeks later, they came back and said, no, we're moving to Allentown, Pennsylvania. So as most freshmen, as you can imagine, probably people in the room here, I was not happy. I kind of came here a little like kicking and screaming. But I understood it. I had a sister who lived in New Jersey. We had my grandmother, and everybody was in New Jersey. So
they didn't want to go too far away.
They didn't want to go too far away, and this was, it was a good opportunity for them. So they came here, and it eventually evolved into Lucent Technologies and then a gear before they retired. But ended up coming here. They didn't know where they wanted to live, so we ended up landing in Whitehall, Pennsylvania, and I ended up going to Whitehall High School, which I kind of always tell the story that if you haven't been to Whitehall in a long time, when I got here, it was basically MacArthur Road was mostly cornfields. And now there's like strip malls.
It was?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't
so a
know
lot
that.
of the strip malls that were there were mainly cornfields. So I get here, I'm like, where did you bring me? Like, where did you bring me?
Oh my gosh. And because Union is a suburb, but it's not super rural. I mean, it is.
No.
And there's a lot going on in Union. There's highways and activities.
And it was definitely a different culture. I kind of tease people, I'm like, even though I'm Cuban, I kind of fell into that kind of like Guido look. So I had that whole like Italian, the longer hair and the.
I don't know anything you're talking about.
Yeah, you don't know what I'm talking about, right? So I get here.
So the Italian girl with the curly hair who got a spiral perm on top of it in 9th grade in order to make her hair bigger.
That's awesome. With all the spray.
That was great. I still love my hair aerosol.
So I get here and I do not fit in. I don't look like everyone else. I don't sound like everyone else. And Whitehall was just a really kind of a rough and tough school. What I mean by that is like sports was king. So thank goodness I decided to come here and play football and baseball. So I started making friends immediately. And that was really what turned my mindset, because at first I'm like, why am I here? But little by little, I started realizing this is just a great place to be and a great place to grow up. And but like most kids are like, I don't know what to do. Once I graduate, I think I'm still want to kind of venture out. So
tell me what it was like being the child of immigrant parents. What kind of challenges, opportunities? What was that like? How is it different than what you'd call your I don't know that there is a typical all-American family anymore, or if there ever was, but are there anything that you look back now as an adult and think, Wow, that was sort of a unique experience that you didn't realize as a kid, but you...
Yeah, and it's funny because that turns to be the conversation, a lot of our Christmas conversations, it turns to be. We laugh about it now because when we were growing up, my sister and I, we kind of thought we were rich for some reason. And we were like, oh, we're wealthy, but we weren't. We actually lived in like what I would consider the projects in Newark, New Jersey for a while. And but the most important part was my parents barely spoke English. So Spanish was the first language in our house. My grandmother spoke only in Spanish. My sister and I kind of developed the Spanglish, accent. So we were struggling trying to figure out what language we were, and then they just didn't, it was just a different culture for them, and it was different for us, but it really was fun. It was kind of fun being that, I'd come home and I would watch novellas with my grandmother, which is kind of funny looking back. And if anybody knows what novellas are, they're soap operas that actually end. Yeah. That actually end, because my wife, we talk about it.
Not the General Hospital that's been
exactly.
on for 40-something years.
She watched General Hospital, and I'm like, no, those actually end. They're only for a few months. But I think it was challenging, but we never felt like we were missing out on anything. They were both very hardworking.
What did your parents do?
They honestly I can't even tell you, because they worked in basically a factory. They worked their 40 hours plus, a lot of overtime. They worked in a telephone company and on the line, basically an assembly line, and they both worked with the company for almost 30 years. So I thought I was going to follow suit, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to get into a company job and
that's where
punch a clock,
yeah.
But no, I completely.
And that's kind of what you knew.
That's what I knew, and that's why I knew. I'm like, oh, I'm going to be the same place for 30 years plus. I'm going to get my watch before I retire, and then I'm going to move on. But
what was the focus in your house? I mean, I hear a lot from friends that I've made over the years who were here as sort of firstborn Americans.
Sure.
That there's such a strong focus often on education, opportunity, family. So what was the focus in your house?
It depended on the person, because me as the boy, I was like the golden child. Like they would just baby me basically. As my wife says, I didn't even cut my first piece of steak until I was like a teenager. Like they wouldn't let me do anything. But the focus really was just, in their mind, I guess, having the American dream, I guess, and trying to work. But the hardest part they had was they really loved Cuba. They loved their land and they wanted to go back, but they just couldn't ever see a way of going back. So they really, actually, I do have a love for Cuba. I don't know anything about it. I've never been. That'll be on my bucket list one day to get there. But they just told me stories about their childhood.
So were there things in your home or as part of holidays or traditions that they really made important in order to keep that Cuban culture alive for you?
Somewhat, yeah. Some of it's kind of...
Tell me something. Like, what's a thing? What's a Cuban tradition?
I don't know, because I don't know if it's a Cuban tradition, so I'll get dinged on this.
That's all right. Well,
my
in your
mom
family,
was funny.
What was
I don't know if this even makes sense to you, but my mom was always an extremist on everything. So, like, if I was sick...
Wait, I'm sorry. Does it make sense to me? You're talking to an extremist.
Yes. Well, like, for example, like, I would tell people, like, she would put, like, Vicks Vapor Rub on me if I was sick, and, like, all over my body was greased down, and she would,
I love it.
She would take a cup of water and put it underneath my bed. Now I'm telling these dark secrets, right?
Yeah.
She put a cup of water underneath my bed to, I guess, get rid of the germs and the demons. I have no idea.
Well,
they would light candles all over the house.
That's to give humidity into the dry air in the winter, right?
I'm sure that's what it was for.
Did you ever get the, what was it, Vicks on your feet?
They
say Vicks on the bottom of the feet helps with a cough.
She did everything, everything possible. Every tradition you can think, wives' tale, she would do, and she had medicine for everything. So it was pretty interesting. But
what was the main dish? What is Cuban?
I guess rice and beans was always big. I got sick of it. I love it now. And Cuban sandwiches and rice and beans and paella and picadillo and all these different Cuban dishes. But I got sick of it after a while. So I'd go to my friends' houses and they'd have like spaghetti and meatballs, and I'm like, this is amazing. I love spaghetti and meatballs and pizza and all the other stuff, and chicken and mashed potatoes. But I definitely had a very traditional Cuban food upbringing. It involved a lot of rice, a lot of garlic.
That's great. Well, you mentioned sports and moving to Whitehall, and as a 10th grader, I guess having to find your place.
Yes.
Sports was sort of your in.
It was, but it was difficult.
It was difficult, right? Yeah, and what role did sports play? I mean, were you also academic? I mean, what was your...
Yeah, I definitely put it on the back burner sometimes. I was a solid student, I guess. I would, get my B's and my C's, and I was pretty happy. Rarely would I get an A in high school. I just didn't put a lot of effort into it. Fortunately enough, I did well enough to get by, but I didn't put a lot of thought process. My thought process was I'm going to make it through sports, I'm going to work out, I'm going to get big, and all this good stuff that most people think, and I'm going to go to college, and God knows what, go pro, right?
Right.
But you know, Whitehall was interesting because I came in and everyone had kind of grown up there, and so there's outsiders coming in. Fortunately, from my year, there was a lot of other transfers that came in. So we ended up having a phenomenal team, so we had a lot of bonding, you know, from that. But
and also, I think camaraderie from the town too,
yeah,
right?
There was
Towns
a lot
get
of
pretty psyched about solid football
yeah,
teams,
especially here, football definitely is king. You know, Friday nights, the towns come out for the games.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate when I was in high school. My senior year, we actually played a team from California, so I got a lot of buzz. It was a team from El Toro, California, so it was like the big game of the year, you know, the East versus West and all this fun stuff.
And I didn't have that experience in high school myself growing up, and that's kind of been interesting, even though neither of my son does not play football.
Right.
But we go to the games, you know, pretty often, and it is
pride.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's really a neat thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the goal? What did you think? What happened after high school? What did you decide to do next?
Well, my first thought process was I'm going to leave the area. I'm going to go and explore the country. I'm going to go somewhere warm. I'm going to go to Florida, or I'm going to go somewhere, right? And then
that Orlando was still sitting in the back of your head.
But then I started realizing, you know, there's not as many people knocking on my door with these scholarships that I thought about, and I kind of started looking around. So one thing led to another. I decided to just stay up here and kind of go to the schools nearby. I actually first started at Kutztown University. When I went there, the coach that was there at the time ended up leaving, so I shortly after that decided to move over to East Stroudsburg University, where a lot of my friends had ended up. So I ended up going up there, and you know, it was almost an extension of high school. It was very similar to being, because East Stroudsburg's so close from here. But I think that was the first time on my own, as being a child that mom doesn't let me do anything. It was the first time I was on my own. I had to do my own wash, which I still came home with it sometimes. But,
you had that like overflowing duffel bag?
Yeah, it was just interesting to be on my own and not have somebody taking care of every little thing. But you know, the best thing that happened to me in East Stroudsburg, I still to this day say, is where I met with what is now my wife. And I was a senior, and I had done all my, you know, my playing and my partying and all that, and I finally met what I call Miss Goody Two Shoes, you know, comes in.
Tell us about your wife, because you speak so highly of her, and you guys have.
Tara, her name's Tara. She actually grew up here in the Lehigh Valley too, and she went to Salisbury High School, and was born and raised in the same house for over 20-some years. And I met her shortly before she turned 18, which always makes me laugh that I met the 17-year-old, right? And I'm a senior in high school.
Which is when I started dating my husband also.
Oh, really? Okay.
Same thing. So
there was nothing bad there.
Robbers, I know.
Yeah, but I was a senior, and she was.
You could have a drink, and she couldn't, but you know, have our drinks. Okay, so she's not even 18 yet.
She's not even 18, and so I meet this young girl who's, you know, seems, you know, very mature for her age, and I'm like, I kind of was done. I'm like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to finish school. I want to get out of here. My thought process is, I'm going to move and start my career somewhere else. And I said, you know, if you're interested, I'd love for you to come. But I'm kind of like taking this young child. This is shortly after, a few months after we're talking. And then, you know, she started thinking about it. She goes, you know, I'd love to do that. So I kind of fast forward a little bit. But what happened was we actually applied for an internship with Disney. And we were very fortunate. I don't know how many people were in this interview process, but
it's a lot, though.
It was a lot,
really
and somehow we both ended up making it to the finals.
Meant to be.
And it was like group interviews, so we ended up making it, and we both got selected for the program. And somehow we survived it. We survived this relationship. And but what I always tell people, the most important thing about Tara for me has always been, she's always been the person that's kind of calmed me down, keeps me out of trouble.
She's like your North Star.
She definitely calms me down, because I want to go at 100 miles a minute. I want to be, you know, as I tell people, like, give an example of my honeymoon. We were on a cruise, and the whole cruise I'm running around making friends and doing all the activities on the cruise. My wife's basically taking naps and reading the book by the beach, you know.
I love it.
Yeah, we're somewhat opposites, but she definitely she grounds me. She keeps me humble. So it's really been a great relationship. I met her in 1990, so I guess we're heading on 28 years.
I was going to say, yeah, that's amazing, though. Congratulations.
She's put up with me this many years and all the moves, you know. But you know, the one thing about her, she never lost her love for Lehigh Valley. So.
So I want to talk a little bit about that journey, because you're only really recently back in the. You can sip it and drink it. You're only recently back in the area. And so that's been a long road to get back to the Lehigh Valley.
It has.
You get this internship at Disney.
Yeah.
And what do you do there? Tell people, because I don't think that many people know someone who has worked at Disney.
Really?
So
yeah.
I feel like tell us
it was
a
probably
little
not
bit.
as glamorous as you.
No,
you
it never
might
is,
imagine.
but it's still.
Yeah. So I did a bunch of jobs. When we were on the internship, it's basically a college program, and you're on this. You go to this. Back then, it was called Vista Way. So we were on this college campus, basically, where they house all these college students and international students. So to think about a college campus, I know there's a Kutztown person in the room, but with no books and no homework, and you just work. So you work basically a full-time job in different areas.
So are the kids that come to work in the countries in Epcot?
Yes.
They're there.
They're all international. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's cool. I always wondered how that.
Yeah,
worked.
and they stay a little longer. So for the most part, ours was supposed to be a shorter internship, and then we were fortunate. Once we were done, we were asked to stay on and continue to work and have a full-time career there and all that. But I believe I'm trying to think, because I had multiple jobs in my internship. I worked in retail.
Okay.
At a contemporary store, which I was hilarious. I'm terrible at men's shopping stores. I also worked in Walt Disney World Travel Company, was more my wheelhouse, which was I was taking phone calls and with travel agents trying to book Disney. And then I also worked in recreation as a lifeguard. So I did a little bit of everything in my internship. My wife didn't have as much fun. She worked in ticketing at the people that take your tickets when you come in into the parks. But she ended up going into guest relations and doing tours. I kind of ended up in recreation, being a recreation manager. So,
what did you learn from that experience that sort of put you on the path
yeah,
that you're on now?
No, totally. And I think the most important thing that we both learned at Disney was first being a part of this major corporation, major company, and what they really strive on is education and teaching and really customer service. I think the biggest thing we got out of that program is the way we look at customer service to this day, how we're treated, how we're responded to. I put a lot of value in that training that they did for us. It was amazing, and it continued. Disney does an amazing job of training their staff, and you take that with you. It kind of becomes ingrained into your life.
I also think that what happens to you at that age, because I had a different field but similar experience, and I think that what happens to you in those early internships and first jobs really sets the table for how you approach the rest of your career, because it's what becomes the foundation in a lot of ways. Of course, you're building blocks with your family and at home, but I look at that, and so we have several interns in the room and a young staff here at ASR, and I take it pretty seriously, and I always tell them that it really means a lot to me that their experience here is not just positive, that they're learning something about the work we do, but more that they're learning professional development, customer service, teamwork, the kinds of things that I feel like I want them to look back and say, I remember learning that at my time. So I love to hear that about what you learned at Disney, because I feel like I got that also, and I try to pass it on.
No, and I'm sure you're doing a phenomenal job. And
Not every day, but I try.
Yeah, they seem like a wonderful group. But I'll be honest, there was, one of the things at Disney we talked about was exceeding people's expectations. I don't know if you've heard that used a lot, but that was really our mindset when we got up in the morning. Like, how do we make a difference in someone's life? People save their money for years to get to this park, and then they get there and things just are not perfect. It can rain, it could be miserable out, they could lose their cameras, the rooms are not ready. So what do we do as cast members to fulfill that experience and make it better for them? So it also was a company that really empowered their employees to make a difference in a person's life. So it could be any position, which was great. So
it's always
I can get into
amazing to think how, with as many cast members and staff and interns that they have, that tone from the top could work its way down and permeate every job. I love that.
It definitely, the only other experience that I felt like was that regiment was my experience in the military. But other than that,
we skipped right over that.
No, I did it backwards.
Next. Okay,
I did
you went
it
to
backwards.
Disney first.
I did the Disney first. Started my hospitality career. Really just got a bug for hospitality. Really loved serving people. Loved being a part of that customer service. Really loved introducing people to what my passions were. Left Disney, my wife and I decided to have a child, and this was probably in 1996. So we decided to have the child, and then after she got pregnant, she started getting homesick. She's like, hey, I want to move back up to the valley, and I'm like, well, I don't have a job in the valley. I don't know what we're gonna do, So needless to say, I started looking around, and I ended up landing a position here in the Valley, and then worked for a company called Kingdom Vacations, which Kingdom was really Magic Kingdom. They sold wholesale products for Disney. So it was right exactly where I wanted to be. I was able to continue to sell Disney, but
you were in the location.
I was in location, so I worked. Yeah, so I worked remotely here in the Lehigh Valley for a short stint. So she did get back to get home, but it was kind of a big transition again. We got back to the Valley. We got here in let's say it was '98. We were just here till 2001. So things were going great. We were finally, she was where she wanted to be, and she was happy. We had the baby, and our families were here. And like anything in life, it wasn't a perfect thing. And in May of 2001, I think it was Memorial Day weekend to be exact, on a Friday night, I went down, I had my office in the house. I was in my basement, and I came upstairs and said, honey, our company went out of business today, and I don't know what we're going to do.
Wow, so that's like a really scary moment.
Yeah, a scary moment for me because I had never been in that experience, and then also didn't really plan for it. Like most young people, we spent everything we made. We were trying to keep up with everybody else, and the cars and the houses and everything that we could possibly have. And I'm like, how am I going to pay the next bill? I don't have any plan. So we didn't know what to do, and I'm skipping through this really fast because now we'll be here for days. But started talking, and I said to her, and I started getting emotional as a dad. I'm like, I don't want to have my child go through this and this highs and lows of this industry of sales, and if I'm not successful, I won't have a job, and I kind of want to have something permanent. So I said, I want to do something that would make my daughter proud, and I decided I wanted to go into the military. And
incredible.
I don't know how I convinced Tara to do it, and I basically said, hey, if we do this, we have to liquidate everything. We have to sell everything. We have to sell everything, and we have to start from scratch. We can't go in with any bills, and so I did. I went and took all kinds of entry tests and all kind of stuff, and I decided I was going to be a corpsman in the military, and I was going to hopefully become a paramedic and all this good stuff to go along with it. But in the time, I'm in my 30s now, and then I'm like, what am I doing? I'm going into the military with a bunch of young kids that are 18, 19, and I'm this old guy now in their mind. So I got myself back into shape, and everything was ready to go, and I'm ready to do this. I'm going to make a career out of this. And unfortunately, my first day of military service, or the day I'm swearing in, is 9/11.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not kidding. So I literally, the night before, I said to my wife, like, well, the good thing is that everything's been really calm for the last few years. There hasn't been any war situations. Everything was calm. So we were like, this should be good. I'm going to go in and kind of have somewhat of a civilian job, but I'll have all the benefits of the military, all the good things that go along with it. So that morning, I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, waiting to swear in, and I didn't have a cell phone at the time. And I basically I called her on a calling card, and I said, hey, I'm headed in to swear in, and then I'm going to be flying to Pittsburgh after this and heading to Chicago for boot camp. I'll call you from Pittsburgh. By the way, did you hear that plane hit a tower? And I'm like, what a goofball, because I was thinking it was just a private plane.
Right. When it was unfolding, we didn't know
it was really
what was
early, and I'm in this what they call military entrance processing station.
Right. So you're not watching like live.
I'm watching, but I'm not really paying attention. I just thought some plane hit the tower. So I get off the phone, and then I'm just sitting here watching. We're waiting in this waiting room, almost like you're like in a hospital setting, kind of just waiting around, and we're looking at the TV. Then the second plane hits, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on? So now this place gets like pandemonium. And I'm like, okay, what is going on? And I'm like,
right, and what do you even do?
Yeah, so they just kept moving forward. The phones were ringing, things were going on. They brought us into this room, and it was right out of a movie. It was kind of funny. I always laugh, but I'm like, I don't know why I get myself into these things. So I'm in this room with a bunch of teenagers, and we're standing at attention, and this higher ranking officer comes in, and he's going to do our swearing, but he says to us, he basically tells us that we're going to war and that we're being attacked, and this is not what you guys signed up for. So he told everybody in the room, if you want to walk out right now, you can. And I'm sitting there going, I just turned down some opportunities and jobs. Like, why am I doing this? This is not what I was going to do. So there was kids crying next to me, and I'm like, so we took a moment. He stepped out, and then he came back in, and we all stayed. So we all decided to do it as a group and decided to pursue what we were going to do. And is what we did sign up for. We just, had to think about it for 5 minutes or so. Kind
of interesting that he actually gave everybody the out.
I thought he was kidding.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
I didn't think it was a thing either, but we had literally not sworn in yet. We weren't official.
Wow.
So we went ahead and we swore in. Meanwhile, not knowing that the world is unfolding, because I don't have access right now, I remember my last call to her was that I'm flying on American to Pittsburgh.
Oh my gosh, Tara's got to be freaking out.
She's freaking out, and there was a plane that I guess crashed and
Right.
you know, so we were like, I need to get a hold of her, and there, you know, you just can't do what you want.
Right.
And so that being said, I finally called her. She was upset. I was upset. I'm like, I'm okay. Everything's fine. I didn't go anywhere. I'm here. So,
wow.
So they ended up actually busing us to boot camp, and ended up going through boot camp, which then became we're at war and we have to train differently. And but I just embraced it. I actually used it as energy. I actually ended up becoming one of the top recruits out of boot camp. I actually got what they call a Lone Sailor Award that was awarded by Donald Rumsfeld at the time, and they came in and were part of the ceremony, so it was great. And then I went on to what they call A school and C school, and continued to get promoted because I figured out, hey, if I turn out to be the number one in my class, I get promoted. So I'm like, more money, more, you know. So everything was going well. I actually was nominated for Sailor of the Year in 2003 in the Navy. So everything was going good. I'm like, this is great. This is amazing. I love my career here. So in 2004, I go through what they call field med training, which is like a second boot camp, or kind of like SEAL training. I was going to be a corpsman for the Marines, so I'm on a Marine base in Camp Pendleton, California, and I'm going through the training, and I realized during the training I realized that as I go through the medical, the doctor came back and said, you can't deploy, you can't go to Iraq. And I said, why? Because I had an inhaler. So at the time, there was a lot of word of chemical warfare, and I would have to wear the equipment, and they said, you can't go with an inhaler, so you're going to have to do something else.
I had just heard this for the first time recently,
Yeah.
about how restrictive having any kind of breathing
Yeah.
issues are.
So it was all allergies.
Wow.
It was really, I had to develop bad allergies, and so I'm like, what am I going to do now? So they basically kept me in this like stagnant state for a while. They ended up putting me back into Washington State. I went to Bremerton Hospital, continued to help out as a surgical tech there. In the meantime, I'm like, what am I going to do with my career now? I've gone so quickly, it's moving really fast. But so the person I was working for at the time said, Alex, you should just, get out, go back and do what you know how to do. And I'm like, I don't want to get out. I don't want to do this again. So,
now, at this point, after all that, you've almost fallen in love with
I love
the military.
Yeah.
And what is it that you loved about it? I mean, what really did you?
It sounds crazy, but I love the security. I loved it. It kept me young. It kept me kind of energetic. I always had, a different kind of goal, and I felt proud of going into work every day and representing our country and doing whatever I needed to do. And I felt like
we're so fortunate. I mean, thank you for your service, and thank you for saying yes that day.
I wish I could do more.
I feel like I would have been like, I'm good, I'm out.
Yeah, I thought about it. I'm not that,
Yeah, but still, it's one thing to go the normal course, and then something happens, and you've been trained. But to hit the ground, I mean, I can't even imagine on that day, because of course all of us that were
Everybody
adults at that day has a story. And my brother actually went in and got my sister out of the city and took her over the Brooklyn Bridge. And so it's really interesting. Just, everybody's got their thing.
Yeah.
So to have that and then have the training, that must have, I can't imagine the reaction, how that trickled into the training that you received and then the course of action. Yeah. So now you can't go beyond where you can go, right?
Yeah, now I'm stuck again. Now I'm kind of in the same situation I was in 2001 with the company. Basically, this time it's not the company's problem, it's my problem. I have an allergy that I can't get rid of, or reactive airway disease, or whatever they want to call it. And then they're like, hey, you probably should move on. So again, I'm like, okay, I'm back to square one again. They said, where do you want to go? And I had the option to either kind of go back to Pennsylvania or go somewhere else in the country. So I, again, didn't put a lot of thought into it. And I'm like, okay, I think we're going to end up in Florida. So we went to Florida. We thought we'd have a lot of opportunities. Instead of going to Orlando, we went to Ormond Beach, Florida. I've always had the thing, I want to live by the beach.
Okay. Where is that? What part of Florida?
It's next to Daytona, next to Daytona Beach.
Okay. Still fairly north.
Yeah, and just to go backtrack real quick, and I'll tell everybody this, the military experience for me was probably the best thing that ever happened to our family, because it forced us also to kind of look at what we had. We could live with a lot less. We were definitely trying to live above our means. We realized we don't need all this stuff. We don't need all these material things. So it was really the best thing that happened to us. It really molded us moving forward, and it made us stronger as a family.
Amazing how something like that can change your entire perspective.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be the person I am today without that experience. So it just changed me completely. It just really did. So then,
if there was one lesson that you took away in addition to that you need less than you think you do, which was another thing I really love about this millennial generation.
Yeah.
They just seem, and you've got a daughter who's sort of on the next, I guess, the top of the next generation.
Yeah,
but
she is, yeah.
They really don't put as much emphasis on stuff and progressing through life with stuff, and that's sort of a cool thing I think that's happening. But in addition to that, what would you say would be the one big lesson that you learned, maybe professionally, that you've taken forward with you into your career now?
From the military?
Yeah.
You know, one of the captains one time came to me and he said, Alex, you know, one of the things one of the advice I can give you is, you know, always work and do your work and work hard and don't try to be noticed. People will notice. You know, be humble and you will get noticed. Just do your thing, put your head down, do your job every single day, and you'll get noticed, and don't try to be the limelight. Which I thought was an interesting, what it kind of told me was, you know what, I'm just going to do my job. I'm going to stay true to myself. I'm going to work hard, and then hopefully somebody will notice and it'll make a difference. So the reason for that for me is, like, a lot of times we try so much to kind of be the star of the team, or, you know, the winning quarterback.
Or make the decision that will get you noticed, as opposed to just doing the job, doing it well.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of team, and I truly believe it takes everyone, you know, just like your team here, every success that we have, and I look at this in our career now, every success that we have is because of a team effort. And for me, it starts in my household. It starts with my wife, Tara, my daughter, Madison, now my pets, and all that goes along with it. But it starts with them and having that support, and then being able to take that into work, and having that team camaraderie, and having that feeling of, you know, we're going to work together on this. And I feel about that in the Valley, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But once I left the military, like I said, they kind of said, hey, you can get out. They dropped our furniture off in Ormond Beach, Florida, which is outside of Daytona. Didn't know what to do, so I kind of got into the hospitality industry again. And like, what am I going to do? So I ended up in a hotel for a few months. But the greatest thing there was, as I was in a hotel, I started working with what was called the Convention and Visitors Bureau, or DMO. And so a lady by the name of Sally Gardner said, hey, you'd be interested in come work for us. We're going to start a position. I'm like, I have no idea what you do, but I'd be happy to look at it. So,
and that was really your intro into
this world, into the destination marketing world. So I got into Daytona Beach Convention Bureau, didn't know what to do. I was put in an office. They gave me a computer and said, go at it. Good luck. And I'm like, there's no SOP. I was in the military and Disney, and there's no standard operating procedure. There's nothing for me to follow. And they're like, nope, figure it out. But it was still good for me, because it gave me the empowerment to figure out what to do, what business to drive to Daytona. I started reaching out to all my, people that I felt were mentors and colleagues, and say, hey, how do I get this done? What do we need to do together? Because I didn't know what to do.
It's daunting when there's no procedure.
At all.
But on the flip side, it's empowering, because the opportunity is so huge.
Yeah.
To kind of create that, and I think you learn a lot more when you have to create a procedure. It's funny, because we've done so much we've built from the ground up here.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, it's often a group decision on, all right, we'll come up with a procedure and then let's review it together. Yeah. And I don't know, I think you learn a lot.
I did, because I had no idea what I was getting at, and it just became really successful, and other destination marketing organizations were noticing, and more specifically, were Jacksonville, Florida, were noticing, and that was my competitor to the north. And at the time, my daughter, who was probably closer, at this point, she's probably about 10 years old, competitive swimmer. Her name's Madison, by the way. Madison was a competitive swimmer, swam for Daytona Beach Speed, which was Ryan Lochte's family.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And she's right now, a phenom. I'm like looking at this child. I'm like, what do we have here? This kid is so incredibly fast, possible future Olympian. We don't know what to do with this talent. And to our north in Jacksonville, there was a high school called Bowles, or a swim program there. It was one of the tops in the world. So I'm like, wow, if I can get her to Jacksonville, she's going to have access to all these incredible coaches and all these Olympians and all that. And this will give her an opportunity.
And meanwhile, your sort of competitor that you're keeping an eye on each other is up there anyway.
Yeah, so I get a call from them shortly after, and they said, hey, if you're ever interested, we'd love to have you up here. Would you ever consider moving to Jacksonville? And I'm like, yeah, I think I would. Let's talk. So one thing led to another. I wasn't even really caring about the job. I really just wanted to get Madison up there to be a part of this program.
Well, I want to make sure we get to the Lehigh Valley. So you go to Jacksonville, and you work, just give me the laundry list. You work in a few other markets.
Yeah, I worked in Jacksonville, and well, specifically I went into Jacksonville. I was there for about 8 years, so that's where the DMO world, where I really started to get my ground, going and getting a lot of business, and making my contacts around the country. I really had a successful run at Jacksonville. So fast forward, my daughter's doing phenomenal up there, doing great in her sports and school, and everything's going well. So her formidable years were there in Jacksonville, from like basically 5th grade all the way through high school. So her senior year, I kind of had an opportunity. I said, the company I was working for, I visited Jacksonville. wasn't making a decision whether I was going to move up or not. And I kind of got to the point where like, what do I need to do? And then Tara said to me one day, what are you going to do? Are you just going to wait around for this to happen, or are you just going to move forward? And I'm like, all right, if you're ready, I'm like, let's go. So I put my resume out, and like a week later, I had an opportunity to go to a place called Virginia's Blue Ridge, which is Roanoke, Virginia.
Beautiful place, yeah.
Beautiful place out in the remote part of the Virginia, beautiful. And
I grew up going to a horse show in Roanoke, Virginia.
There you go. So again, my supportive family said, let's do it. And I ended up going out there. I was ahead of them by 6 months, let Madison graduate high school. And luckily for me, she ended up coming up here to Franklin and Marshall College, and then kind of transferred up to FIT later in Manhattan. She changed careers and wanted to be a fashion major. But we knew that she loved Northeast and she was going to get here. So we're like, oh, let's get up there closer. So
you just kept moving up.
Yeah. If you really look at my career path, it's a true full circle.
Isn't that funny? So,
yeah.
so to
From
go
coast
full
to
circle,
coast.
you get even more experience down in Virginia.
Yeah.
And now the opportunity comes up to come back to discover Lehigh Valley, come back to your hometown,
and your
wife's hometown, get closer to your daughter, who now is in as FIT in New York, right? So tell me about the opportunity, and tell me a little bit about kind of your hopes and vision for Discover Lehigh Valley. This area, meanwhile, let's also state, the area has changed dramatically in the 15 plus years that you've been gone.
Right. Well, and I had no intentions of coming back, but my wife was really interested, and I don't know if I told you a little bit about this story, but when I was also being recruited to go back to Jacksonville as the CEO of that organization.
Oh, okay.
There. So I go to my final interview, visit Jacksonville. I'm flying home that day, and I said to my wife, I'm like, I'm just not feeling it. I don't know if I want to go back. And she's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to have to make a decision really soon. And I'm connecting in Atlanta, and I'm sitting there at the airport, and I look at my phone, and I see that the current president of Discover Lehigh Valley is retiring. And I'm like, hey, I screenshot it, sent her a text. I'm like, hey, what do you think? We should go there instead. I was kidding.
Yeah, she wasn't.
And she jumped all over it, and I get like a million.
Isn't it amazing how timing is everything?
Yeah, and so I get home that night. We didn't really talk about it. The next morning, I said to her, what do you think? And she's like, I think this is the sign. I think we should go back to Lehigh Valley. I said, all right, let's do it. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I look at the article. I see that Cassie Hilger and Kurt Landis are on the search committee. I send them a quick note, and I'm like, tell them a little bit about myself. And, the rest was kind of... They must have
opened those emails. I'm going to ask Cassie and Kurt about it and been like, this is an amazing...
I don't know. Maybe they did.
I think it's a pretty, of course, it's been a great organization in the area for a long time. But the Valley has really grown and changed, and I think it's an amazing thing that you have this history and this connection here, and yet you have this vast experience out in the rest of the world to bring to us. So just in a nutshell, because I do a little lightning round at the end. Sure. So in a nutshell, what are you hoping that your role is with Discover Lehigh Valley? What do you hope for this area?
First and foremost, I think we talked about it. I want to see a continued collaboration. I believe that this is an area that I'm extremely proud of. I think people that live here, that have grown up here, are so proud of the area, but a lot of us that did leave and experience other areas and now have the eyes to say, this is a unique and amazing place to raise your family, to have your business here, to make this place call home. We have it all here in the geographic location, everything that goes along with it. But the first thing I want to do with Discover Lehigh Valley, of course, get my team, the right players in place, and make sure that they have the same vision I do, and again, providing that incredible service and getting people around the country and internationally to really recognize that this is a destination, and have that, show that, be able to explain that pride to them and show them what we have. So we're going to be working really hard, but kind of going back to everything I've ever done, I've never done it by myself. So getting these big, organizations here in the Valley, the Cassie Hilgers and the Arts Quest and the Lehigh Valley Economic Development Corps and the Chamber, and getting all these partners together and partners like yourself that really work together on that one mission. Let's get that word out, and let's do it together, because we'll have a stronger voice if we do it together as opposed to. Yeah, so if I can get one thing.
Alex, I mean, obviously we love it. It's so a part of our mission and who we are and what we've tried to do, and we're just so thrilled to have you in the area and here with us. Before we let you go, I want to just do a quick little fun lightning round. If you were to have one meal, your favorite meal, what would you eat?
Oh my gosh. You know, actually, my favorite meal is actually breakfast. But so I'm a big
like to go to the diner.
Yeah, actually,
we
laugh about it. We're like senior citizens. We go to the Trivet every weekend, and I get the Superman.
Have you been to Diana's Cafe?
I need to get there too.
Okay,
I'll go
give
anywhere.
you my breakfast list. I'm a big breakfast person too. So we'll have
but
to
if I guess
if
it was like my last meal, I guess I would probably want something from my childhood. It would be like probably the rice and beans and the Cuban sandwich, and have some of that.
If you could have dinner with anybody, and you can pick 1, 2, 3 people, who would you have share a meal with, and why?
If I could have dinner with anybody, you know, I'm going to be corny, but it's definitely my wife and daughter. You know, it sounds corny, but it is. It's the truth. You know, no matter anytime I can have a sit-down meal with them, and you know, hopefully it's every day, but anytime we can sit down together, it's always important to me, and it's always special.
I love that.
You know, so I can name you about a million other people, but if I had to pick one, hands down, it would be them. Yeah.
Name one place that you've been, your favorite place you've ever been, and a place you haven't been that you'd love to go.
You want me to say Lehigh Valley, right?
No, you're allowed to say other places.
Yeah. My favorite place that I've ever been. Oh, you caught me off guard here on this one.
You can give me a place you'd love to go. What's on your bucket list?
Well, I can tell you one of the places that you know, the Pacific Northwest was such a beautiful area of the country. I was on Whidbey Island, and there's a lot of little communities out there. So I'd say, you know, one of the most favorite places I was is in the Pacific Northwest, Seattle and Canada, in that area up there. But one place that I haven't been, I think I said it before. At some point in my life, I'd love to get to Cuba. I'd love to experience that and see the transformation. I heard it's a lot the same it was back in the 50s and 60s.
That's what I've heard too.
Yeah, so I would love to experience that and have maybe my daughter and my wife experience what maybe my family went through at some point, and drive one of those old cars. And
we would
I don't smoke,
that.
maybe have a cigar.
But you would look great. You could with the hat, right? The hat, the old car, your wife and your daughter. Well, I wish that for you too. I hope that you get there.
Thank you.
And we thank you for sharing your journey with all of us.
Thank you.
And it's an interesting one. And thank you, of course, for your service to this country. And
thank you.
Now we're so excited to have your service here in the Lehigh Valley to help all of us get the word out on how cool it is here.
Thank you.
So thanks, Alex. Thanks, everybody, for listening and for watching. This has been Unscripted with Russo.